Ja, ich bin hier bei 22 Cans heute und neben mir steht Peter Molyneux.
Hello, GamersGlobal.
How is the game taking shape?
There's a scary number of bugs, if I'm honest.
Will you fix them in the last 6 weeks?
Hope so.
Hi, Peter. Long time no see.
Long time no see, yeah.
We're here to get in Guildford about 1 month before your new game is coming out.
Yeah.
Masters of Albion.
Yeah.
So tell me about the game, where you got the idea to, and if it's really more than just a God game.
Well, that's an interesting point. I mean, it is a God game. But, for me, I stumbled on God games back in 1989. I mean, it's decades, almost half a century ago. And ever since then, I revisited God games with black and white, but ever since then, I think the God game genre, if you can call it that, has been withering. If you take a pie chart of the total, all the games that people play, it's a tiny, minuscule slice. And I think that's a real shame. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that no one, God games are a genre, but no one understands what a God game really is. What is a God game? We all know what a battle royale game, we all know what a first-person shooter game is or an RTS is, but it's not really easy to define what a God game is. And that has, I've thought a lot about that, and within Masters of Albion, it came down to really one word, and that one word was freedom. I should be able to play the game how I want to play it. And giving players that freedom and then having a system which reacts to that freedom in subtle, not obvious and subtle ways. So when I thought about God games, I thought, well, that definition is much closer to what I think God games should be. And that was the first motivation, really, when thinking about what the design would be. And then I remembered, some features from the past games that I've done. I went back to Dungeon Keeper and, I played it. It was a painful experience because it's dated badly. But there was still a notion of you could possess different creatures and, you had things coming to attack you rather than going out to attack those things. And I thought, well, there's something there, something there to explore a little bit more. And then I went to black and white and, I love the hand interface. I love the freedom that the hand interface gave. Loved the creature, but I think
we all loved slapping the creature.
We all loved slapping. I don't think you could do that in today's politically correct world, but there were mechanics that I loved in there. I loved the interface that tried to remove as much of the interface as possible so you played the game into the world. I loved the open world nature of it. And so I cherry-picked a few things from that to continue exploring. And then I went to Fable. I love the ethos of the world. I love the humor of the world. I love the open nature. I love the customization of the world. And I really had a long list and thought, right, how can we combine this together? These three games, an RTS, a God game and a role-playing game. How can we combine those things together? Make it feel familiar but very unique and different. And that's what Masters of Albion is. It's a game which, after you get through the initial section of the game, it gives you the freedom to approach the challenges that the game gives you in any way you want. It's a game that allows you to customize and refine, but not just for purely aesthetic reasons. There were really true gameplay reasons there. It's a game which which really supports exploration and finding things out, all bound up by a narrative story set in the world of Albion. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're creating. For me, and this is purely for me, I feel it's, when you play it, it's something completely unique. You know, it is far more than just the sum of its parts. It's it's something unique.
Mm-hmm.
That's why
so I think it basically has three parts: the building of stuff, be it weapons or be it buildings out of blocks, walls around your settlement.
If you want.
Part 2 could be the nightly attacks, which you can defend against, like in a automatic battler or tower defense game, or with personal involvement by going into heroes you have hired. I think the heroes will defend by themselves if you don't do that, or can be sent somewhere to fight them off. And the third part seems to be the open world, and that's the part where I grew a little bit suspicious about, oh, there's an open world too. So tell me about that part.
Everything you've said is personal to you. You know, this is what we are trying to lean on, is that there is no aspect of the game which there is city building in the game. Absolutely. It's a completely unique and different city builder. And when I've demonstrated to you, I think that will come across. And some people will feast on the city building and build their cities and towns off and solve the problems we throw at them. And not really care about the exploration, not really care about the nighttime. There is also this this really clear distinction. Everything is cozy and calm by day. You can spend as long as you like building, as long as you like designing, as long as you like exploring. But when you hit go tonight, they go tonight.
So I choose when to start the night.
You choose. In fact, there's 3 game modes. The first game mode, you choose when to go tonight. The second game mode is there is timer, and when the timer and the sun moves, and when the sun goes down, you go tonight. The third mode is the hardcore mode, which is time moves forward, but if you ever fail at night, the game is over. And if you fail at night on the other 2 modes, you repeat the day again. But in hardcore mode, you just die. No one's be able to get through hardcore mode, surely. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be players who are motivated by that. And what makes you think this combination of several features of your earlier games, like the hand, like the indirect interface, like playing God with little figures, is in combination something new?
Well, when we first implemented it, it was a real mess. But what we've managed to, I think, to craft is a blend, because we always are tempting you to go to explore. We're always tempting you to build the ultimate city. We're always tempting you to build the right defenses, but we're not requiring you to do that. And this freedom has, and because it all comes back to this word freedom, this freedom has some real lovely side effects. And one of those side effects is everyone's world is completely different. You know, when you start the game, absolutely, in the first, I measure the game by days. In the first 8 days of the game, everyone's world is more or less the same. You're learning to play the game. But then it diverges. And some people just do things like build a one mega city. Some people have these little towns. Some people explore every element of the land. And some people just will only explore if they're required to explore. Some people will use all the resources of the world to build. to build their town, not caring about the consequences, because everything in the game has consequences. And that means if you walk past someone's game and look at it, there are these moments where you go, oh my God, I didn't realize you could do that.
Okay.
And you know what I love, and this used to happen a lot in games, but it doesn't happen so more. I love that moment when you're playing a game and you just go, I wonder if I do this and this, what would happen? And if the game responds to that, then I think amazing, magical things can happen.
So what is the goal of Masters of Albion? What do you want to achieve as a player?
Well, there's a story, a narrative, you know, that you're playing through. You're playing through that story, and how you approach that story is really inspired by Fable a little bit. There are many familiar things from previous games that I've worked on there before, but getting through that story, finding out, you know, I love this shit, finding out more about yourself, how good or evil you are, what the effects of that on the world is there. But yeah.
So it's rather open-ended. The story is there, but it's more about...
So it's how much you engage in the story. I mean, it's got, you know, a beginning, a middle, and an end, and a to be continued. There are characters in the story which hopefully you'll care about, and there are things that you can own and control which hopefully you're going to care about. So you know, when you're designing a game, you're always thinking about motivation, what motivates you to continue playing. And one of the motivations that I love the idea of is we've got this day structure. As you're playing the game, you're going from one day to another game to another game. And when you reach the end of those days, that's when the end of the story is.
But that doesn't mean I have to quit playing.
You can continue afterwards. But, you know, like Fable, Black and White, and Dungeon Keeper, you know, I think if it's completely open-ended, then it's a little bit more challenging. So you can continue playing after the end of the story, but things will be a little bit more experimental, especially in early access.
You mentioned that everything has consequences. So what happens if I don't know, use all the trees around my settlement, all the stone, metal, whatever? What happens to the world?
So, trees are a really interesting point. I wanted, when you chop down a tree, it's gone forever. You know, when you first see Masters of Albion, it's, you know, there's the little towns set in these forests, and for those people that wanted to build the ultimate mega city, fine, but it's going to be completely deforested. The only problem with that, if you run out of wood completely, that's a bit of a snag. So we've demoted that feature until we see what happens in
so trees will grow back over time?
They will grow back at a slower rate.
I think players will kind of expect that to happen.
Yeah, but are they right? You know, if we say choices and consequences, for me, a choice and a consequence isn't, you know, will you walk through door A, door B, door C? It's, you know, I want to build a big city, I deforest the whole land. Well, the consequence will be paid out when, this is what humankind has done to this planet. The consequences will be played out much later. And I really like that. But to do it correctly, we need lots of people to play the game. So a lot of what we've got in Masters of Albion is data driven from a database. So we can adjust things like the tree growth rate and how to regrow trees. We can do that in data rather than having to do it in code.
So the game is coming out on April 22nd, I think, as an early access.
Early access, that's great.
Yeah. So that does mean it's, I guess, more or less feature complete, but not finished.
Well, firstly, when does any game ever get finished these days? Because they are live, and we one of the things that we're utterly committed to doing is, when on the day of release, we'll have a roadmap of features that we're implementing, because some of the features, I mean, for me, in early access, the game should be playable from start to finish. There are areas which are a bit rougher around the edges than they should be, and we'll be updating those. But excitingly, for me as a designer, just through analytics, seeing what people are doing and what people are playing, what they're focusing on and what they're feasting on, is going to instruct us on the next steps. I think sometimes the community can suggest a feature and love that, but if you just say, oh, well, the community is going to design the game now, I don't think it would, that ends up.
I would agree. Yeah.
So, but you can be inspired by some of the things that the community is there. So we're releasing in early access a completely playable game from start to finish with a few rough edges. And we've worked really hard on the tools to enable us to make really nimble and fast changes to the balance and the design because all our data is stored in a cloud database. Yeah.
Now you mentioned that Albion will be your last game. Yeah. So what if it will not be successful? Will that be like a very bad day for you, and it will ruin, in your own mind, your career as a game designer? Or will you say, well, as long as I'm happy with it because I like the game, that's a sad thing, but I can live with that?
I don't know. I mean, all I know is that we've got the same people that worked on Black and White, Dungeon Keeper, and Fable, and we care so much about what we're making. If the game is hated by the world, I mean, that would be an incredibly sad thing. Yeah, it would be an incredibly sad thing. Yeah, I don't know.
So I hope that doesn't happen. And everything you've told me so far seems very interesting, and I'm really looking forward to see the game now.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay.